Hello, today I'm going to talk about procedure specific consent and why exactly is this needed and is it relevant to our practice or it is just only an academic thing. So what exactly is an informed consent and what is a procedure specific consent? This is something which a lot of people are getting confused about and are have a lot of concerns and question about it. So informed consent in clinical medicine basically means that the healthcare provider or the clinician would be entering into a discussion with the patient during which the procedure, all its risk consequences, along with benefits and expected outcomes are going to be explained in detail to the patient in a language which the patient understands best. Also, during the course of discussion, the patient would be able to ask questions and get a complete picture. But is it really needed in our setting, or is it something which is totally a Western concept? So, a lot of Western nations are following this, but what's happening around in India? Let's have a look. So I had some discussion some time back with other faculties also, and they were of an opinion that this may not be relevant in India. So I did some search, and that's what I got. There is some case which I'm going to show you. This one, this one, in which the Supreme Court of India has awarded crores of compensation to this patient, or this one. So all these cases and there are some more cases where the judgment went against the doctor, and the only reason why the judgment went against them was because of a consent, and the consent was lacking somewhere or the other. It was not that they did something wrong, they did something which was not accepted clinically. It was a clinical accepted decisions that they had taken, but the only issue was the consent taken before the procedure had some issues. And what were these issues, and what did the judges think about it, and how did they go about it? So now you see this judgment. This, what about this one? This is these are from United States, Canada, United Kingdom. But what is the relevance of these judgments to India? Our Supreme Court is going to take the judgment based on the law of our land. No, that's something which we have not been able to understand. The Indian judges are also aware of what is happening outside in the other countries, and ultimately, human rights are going to be the same everywhere. And they have taken those judgments which I just showed you into context, and they have based their judgments considering the judgments taken in international courts. And when they gave the ruling in the few cases which I discussed earlier, they were uh, they were quite clear that the doctors are duty bound to take consent, and it has to be taken by the surgeon or a clinician performing the procedure, and it cannot be delegable to some junior. A senior performing the procedure has to be there, involved in the discussion, and a sufficient information has to be given, which includes the nature and procedure of the treatment, which includes its purpose, benefits, and effects. It also speaks about alternative options if they are available, and the discussion explains the substantial risk consequences and also the risk of not undergoing a treatment, which is, by the way, a patient's right. The patient may refuse treatment considering the risk and consequences in a situation which is suitable for him. And Consent has to be separate from a diagnostic intervention and a therapeutic procedure. Now, what does that exactly mean? I'll give you an example. Say, for example, you have taken up a patient with right leg fossa pain, considering that this could be appendicitis. And what we normally do is that we say that we are taking up for diagnostic laparoscopy, and the consent has been taken for diagnostic laparoscopy. You go in, you find that there is a inflamed appendix, and you say that let's do it at the same setting for the patient's convenience. Very right. No issues with this. But you have not taken the consent for that, and that is not acceptable in the code. So if you do a appendectomy, you are on the wrong. You are on the wrong side of the law. However, if you have taken a specific consent for diagnostic laparoscopy and undergone a discussion saying that if there is an inflamed appendix, you would do an appendectomy in the same setting and have taken a consent for the same, like for a consent for a appendectomy as well, then you would be able to go ahead and do it. Okay, so you need to be aware what are the things that you may encounter in the course of your procedure and what you may add to. So you can't add another procedure to what a consent has already been taken. This is only acceptable in case of a life-threatening situation. Say, for example, you have taken up a patient for hemoperitoneum and the patient is sinking, and you have taken up the patient, and during the course of the exploration, you find that the spleen is lacerated. You do a splenectomy. That's acceptable because the situation is life-threatening. You can't take the patient out of anesthesia, take the consent and go back in, because by that time the patient won't be there. So in this scenario it's acceptable. But in the other scenario where I mentioned about the diagnostic laparoscopy, you can always reverse the patient back, talk to him, get his consent, and go back in because it was not a life-threatening situation. You can have a common consent for a specific procedure. Say, for example, you have a procedure like an inguinal hernia or a cholecystectomy. An inguinal hernia would have its own set of risk consequences, and all of these, if you have made into a format that is acceptable, provided you have explained those things to the patient. Similarly, for a cholecystectomy. So you can have separate consent forms for a hernia procedure, for a cholecystectomy, that is acceptable. At the same time, whatever your discussions are, they shouldn't create fear in the minds of the patient. They should be able to help him do a informed decision. And what does our consent template, and what are we talking about this? So based on those findings and those recent concerns, we thought of designing a consent template which is procedure specific. And so we designed it for our department, and we have initially begun with hernia repairs and cholecystectomy. I would be releasing these consent templates soon. You may use, it's free for use to all units, and you can use it, and these templates include relevant risk, consequences, treatment options, and they are all based on the observation of Supreme Court. At the same time, this consent, in case if anyone feels that has not been incorporating certain facts or figures and has to be modified a bit, I'm welcome to suggestions. I request you to go through these consent templates and do let me know if you have any suggestions, queries, questions, or any comments. Whatever it is, it's encouraged and it's going to be useful. So the need of the hour is a procedure specific consent forms. This has been there, this sentence or this saying has been there for a long time, but it's more relevant in this scenario. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone, for staying with me. Thank you.